Hey, everybody. I'm fired up. I'm fired up because sometimes you get into or have a day as a business owner that's just like you just don't feel in it. Maybe you're getting things done. You're meeting with clients, like you're doing good, but you just mentally are not in it. And that was me yesterday. And I just had to put it away and do housework. I mean, my family would be like, "Thank you for doing my laundry," but sometimes you just have to do that and you need to get outside and you need to enjoy the fresh air and the sunshine and get away from it. There is a fake tree attacking my arm right now. If you see this on YouTube, you see this. Okay. Let's jump in today's episode because if you have felt like you are on the hamster wheel of content creation, I pray that this will be a refreshing wind of calm and peace to you. I pray that this is going to be like a stream of water that you're sitting in a meadow listening to. Okay. And that's why I'm pumped up. I'm pumped up because I feel like there are those of you out there that are going to take this and run with it and are going to be taking a deep breath. And I feel like this is for you. So today we're going to talk about social media and your podcast. And I've said this before. I don't think you have to have social media for your podcast, but it is an extra way of having your content about your podcast and about your business seen and shown to others. And it's free. And what we're going to talk about today is that you are going to already have done the heavy lifting. So why wouldn't you go the extra mile with it? Yes, some days you can leave it off. Some weeks you can, but why would you want to do that consistently? So we're going to talk about it. We're going to jump in. I want to tell you a story about a client that I have, and she is a support client. So this is after been working together, either launching a podcast or relaunch. Then I have support through Voxer. And so she is a support client. And she was telling me her goal for the week. And she said, "My goal for this week is to create additional content for this week's episode and schedule it." Okay. And when I heard that, I felt a little overwhelmed for her. When I heard her say, "create additional content," I started twitching. Not really. But when you say those phrases like create additional content, like it's triggering because, well, my brain just went, hold up. I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed for you because overwhelm can creep in at a minute's notice. And it can creep in just from one word, just from that one word, maybe create. Maybe that did it for you. Maybe that's what did it for me. Maybe the word additional, which, obviously means more. And then the word content, maybe that was triggering to me. But maybe when it was all put together, create additional content. Da, 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 da. I was overwhelmed for her. And I wanted to relieve her of that. And it's interesting. I was reading an article about how words affect us. I am so intrigued by things like this. I think in a different life, I would have been a psychologist, not for all the math and the science that you have to do in school, but really, truly just being so curious and inquisitive about how our brains work. And I always try to figure out like underlying things about people. That might not be a good thing. But I was reading an article about how words affect us. And there was a study done. This was from the Psych Central website. Okay. I did not say, like, I am a psychologist and I want to know. No. But there was a study done and it said that an unclear medical outcome, it wasn't clear what the medical diagnosis was, but it was perceived as negative when it was caused more often. So it was caused, and I'm doing air quotes if you see me on YouTube, caused more often than when it was produced. So produced is also in air quotes. Okay, so let me read it again. A study was done. It was an unclear medical outcome was perceived, right? Perception sometimes is reality. Perceived as negative when it was caused more than it was produced. And so the research is concluded that the word caused was connected with something negative, while produced was a neutral word. I thought that was so interesting, so encouraging to say the words that we use, the words that we think, the words we say out loud, the words that we tell ourselves can really influence what we do and the feelings behind what we do. So caused was more negative than produced. I just thought that was so intriguing, so interesting. And so I think it's important when we have words that maybe seem heavy or feel overwhelming. I, I want us to reframe that. And I'm talking to myself, like reframing is so important and it's huge in our businesses, in our life. And so when I heard my client say, create additional content, I think that's what it was. It, it, it seemed negative and heavy and overwhelming when we can reframe that in a different way to make it neutral or even actually positive, but taking it from the negative perception to a neutral. Okay. So let's reframe this. So think about how would you reframe that instead of creating additional content? Now you've got to have some context because is it important to create content in our businesses? Absolutely. Like, yeah, we have to create additional content. Not additional. We have to create content. We're content creators. We're podcasters. We're business owners. So we are going to create content, but the fact of creating additional content was maybe caused maybe a negative connotation to that. Okay, so let's reframe this. So instead of not creating additional content, maybe we can say we're going to pull gold nuggets out of what has already been created. We're going to pull out those nuggets of what you've already created. So do you see the difference in that? That we're pulling nuggets out. It's not we're recreating things. We're not creating additional more. We're using what has already been created and we're pulling that nugget out. Have you heard the term or the phrase measure twice, cut once? Right? Measure twice, cut once. This is interesting. I used to own a business where I was doing embroidery, monogramming. And also I would do some sewing on the side. I didn't sell that aspect of it, but for myself, for my baby boy 10 years ago, I created him a blanket. We created two of our good friends that were having babies about a year before that, or 2 years before that, baby blankets, and you had to stitch it. Well, you always measured twice. Like the times that I was like, oh, no, measure once. No, it was always wrong. And so you measure twice and you cut once. Okay. So let's talk about how that looks like with our podcast. If you are thinking about a podcast or you have a podcast, you are going to create your content for your episode one time for that week. One time. You sit, you have space, you have margin, you sit, you create that content one time. If you do bullet points for your episode or if you write it all the way out, you create it once and you repurpose repeatedly. You repurpose repeatedly. So you create that content once, you repurpose from that same content repeatedly over and over and over and over and over. It's endless. So you don't have to create additional content. You can create it once and repurpose from that. I like to think of it as a sponge that I am squeezing every little bit of goodness out of that episode. And when I don't, I feel like it's just it's not I haven't used it to its full potential. You know how you say, "Oh, I pray my child it reaches his full potential or her full potential." And we want that for ourselves. I want to reach my full potential. I just want to be squeezed out. That is the same for you to look at your podcast episode. I want to create the content once, but I want to squeeze every little last drop of that. And let me tell you, when you do that, you are going to have so many ideas. You're going to have so much content. You're going to be like, I don't have enough days to create this. I've said this before. I don't have enough days to create the content. Okay. So let me tell you how. Let's talk about like, how does this look like? How do you pull the nuggets out? So let's think about the ways that you can use this content. Okay. So you're going to pull the nuggets out that you've already created. You're going to create once, you're going to repurpose repeatedly. Okay. Let me just go through really, really fast ways you can do this. Okay. This is like off the top of my head that when I was planning the episode, I was like, yep, yep, yep. So you can do a video with a visual background. I did this for last week's episode, and you can see that on Instagram. I had a visual background. I used a green screen. I had a picture behind me, and it was something to do with the episode. It was a visual. We love visuals. Today, I was reading in the book of Ezekiel and how God told him to put a brick and draw the city of Jerusalem on it. And then he showed what to do with this. He had to lie beside the brick, lay beside the brick, laying. Anyway, he had to be beside that brick on his side. I think it's lie. Yeah, it's lie. He had to lie beside the brick, and then he had to stay there for a lot of days. This was such a visual. The brick is such a visual. I love how the Lord does that. I love how the Bible is full of visual. Those visuals are so important. And so, visuals with a video behind us to market our episode, to repurpose. Remember, we've already created the content. This visual that I talked about, it was about the Bible recap and how she aligns mission fit. She attracts those mission aligned customers with her podcast. So if you see that attracting mission fit clients, that is the reel I'm talking about. So I did a video with a visual background. It was not long at all. It was like, hey, you want to know what this has to do with, podcasting, whatever, or attracting your client? Go listen to the episode. So I did that. There's a video with a talking head, which means you put your camera up in front of yourself. You can do that. You can do a short video in Instagram or Facebook stories with a link, direct people straight to it. A behind the scenes photo. Oh, yes. We love behind the scenes. We're nosy. We want to know what happened behind the scenes. Maybe something funny, maybe serious. It just depends on what your personality is and what you want to share with your listeners. Remember, it's the hook. You want to hook them in. Don't be boring. I have to say that to myself. Ren, this is so boring. Like, no, delete. Or don't even do it. That's boring. It's got to excite you to make sure that they see that excitement, your listeners. Okay, so behind the scenes photo, a carousel, which means it's slides, graphics like 10 at a time in Instagram or Facebook. So carousel from the episode. It could be a phrase that you wanted or a paragraph that you wanted a few sentences on each. It could be go live with your guest that you had. Talk about something deeper than you talked on the podcast or something just off the wall funny. Do a quote, do a Bible verse, tell why that Bible verse means something. And so that was just, off the top of my head, just remember one piece of content, many different ways. And there's so many more than this. This is just off the top of my head. And so what I want to encourage you with is to look at it and remember that our words matter. Our words are powerful. They carry either heaviness or they carry ease. And so when you are thinking about your content for your podcast, I want you to remember, create once, repurpose repeatedly. And that is going to take the pressure off so much. Reframing your mind, reframing your brain to say those things that are not going to be heavy or negative, to bring it back to being neutral. And those are some ways that you can repurpose your podcast episode. I am so excited about what to see when you do this. So if you're a podcaster already and you're like, I've got some content, I'm going to go ahead and do this, tag me on Instagram, Ren Robbins Coach. I want to see it. I want to see you're repurposing your podcast episode in a creative, a dynamic, a fun, simple way, but you can have your podcast. You don't have to recreate the wheel or recreate any content. You can do it. Hey, if you don't have a podcast yet, but you're thinking about it, or maybe not even thinking about it, do this. Tag me. I would love to see it on Instagram or Facebook. And I know this is helpful for you. DM me if you are interested in starting a podcast. I have a group program that will be launching in January, and one-on-one times that are available. I will see you next time, friend. Can't wait. Remember, I love fall. So I'm boosted up. Are you excited? Are you ready to hit the ground running and working smarter, not harder? Remember, I'm here to help you because life's too short to just wing it with your business and with your podcast. See you next time, friend. Bye.